In the corner of a crowded shelter, a medium-sized dog with short brown fur lay quietly, his tired eyes watching the families coming and going, searching for new companions. He had been there for months. At around 5 years old, he was no longer the playful puppy that most people looked for. The younger dogs always seemed to get adopted first, leaving him behind, unnoticed. The shelter was noisy, filled with barking dogs and the constant buzz of activity, but he remained silent in his cage. His once hopeful eyes had dimmed over time, replaced by a resigned look of sadness. He used to rush to the front of his cage when visitors came by, wagging his tail, hoping to be chosen. But now he had learned to stay back, watching quietly as people passed without even a glance his way. The world outside seemed far away, and with each passing day, the idea of finding a home felt more and more like a distant dream. His life had become a monotonous cycle of waiting, and though he didn't know it, his story was about to take a turn for the better. One day, a family of 4 walked into the shelter. There was something different about them. A young couple with 2 children, a girl around 8 years old and a boy about 6. They walked slowly past the rows of cages, looking for a new companion. The younger dogs, as usual, rushed to the front, wagging their tails and barking eagerly for attention. But when they reached the brown dog's cage, they stopped. Unlike the other dogs, he didn't run to greet them. He sat quietly, watching them with tired eyes. Something about his gaze touched the little girl's heart. "Mommy, Daddy, what about this one?" the girl asked, pointing at the dog sitting in the corner of his cage. The parents exchanged glances. He wasn't a puppy, and his history was unknown, but something about him drew them in. They asked to see him, and after a few minutes of cautious interaction, the dog timidly sniffed their hands. He didn't wag his tail wildly or jump around, but there was a quiet gentleness about him. Without hesitation, the family decided to adopt him. They led him out of the shelter, and as the sunlight touched his fur for the first time in months, the dog walked hesitantly alongside them. He didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. The first few days in his new home were a mixture of curiosity and caution for the dog. He wandered through the house, sniffing every corner, but he always kept a certain distance from the family. His eyes followed their every move, but there was still a hint of uncertainty. He wasn't sure if this was truly his home or just another temporary stop. The family, however, showed immense patience. They didn't force affection on him. Instead, they allowed him to come to them when he was ready. The children, full of excitement, respected his space, and the parents observed him with gentle care. Slowly, the dog began to relax. He started lying at their feet while they watched TV, and even followed the children outside as they played in the yard. Then one evening, something changed. The youngest child, the 6-year-old boy, had fallen asleep on the couch after a long day of playing. The dog, who usually slept alone in a corner, quietly approached and lay down beside the boy for the first time. He rested his head gently on the boy's leg, his eyes half closed in contentment. The mother, watching from the doorway, smiled softly. This small gesture meant everything. The dog was beginning to trust. His cautious nature was giving way to the possibility that he had found his place. From that moment on, he became a more present figure in the house, slowly realizing that he was part of a family now, a family that wouldn't abandon him. The house was quiet. Everyone was asleep, the children in their rooms and the parents upstairs. The brown dog, now accustomed to his new routine, lay in the hallway, keeping an eye on the house. His ears perked up at a soft, unfamiliar noise. Something wasn't right. He lifted his head and sniffed the air. The faint smell of smoke began to reach his nose. The kitchen, where a small electrical fire had started, was filling with smoke, and though the fire alarm hadn't gone off, the dog knew there was danger. Without hesitation, he jumped to his feet and ran toward the parents' bedroom, barking loudly. His sharp barks echoed through the quiet house, waking the parents from their sleep. At first, they were groggy, unsure why their normally quiet dog was making such a fuss. But as soon as they smelled the smoke, they understood. Panic set in as the father rushed downstairs to find the source of the fire. The kitchen was beginning to fill with thick smoke, and the flames were spreading across the counter. He quickly grabbed a fire extinguisher and put out the flames before they could spread further. The mother ran to wake the children, and together, they evacuated the house, the dog leading them to safety. Once outside, the family stood together, shaken but unharmed. The realization hit them. Without the dog's alarm, they might not have woken up in time. As the first light of morning began to appear, the family gathered around their dog, hugging him tightly. He sat beside them, calm but alert, as if understanding that he had just saved them from a potentially devastating disaster. His quiet loyalty had turned into a heroic act, and the family knew from that moment that he wasn't just a pet. He was their protector. The morning after the incident, the family was still processing what had happened. The fear from the night before had faded, replaced by a deep sense of gratitude. They realized that the dog, who had been abandoned and overlooked in the shelter, had saved their lives. The parents sat on the couch, their children nestled close, while the dog lay at their feet. They couldn't stop talking about how he had barked at just the right moment, alerting them before the fire could get out of control. It wasn't just luck, it was his instinct, his loyalty to his new family. The father looked at the dog, now lying calmly with his head resting on his paws. "He's more than just a dog," he said softly. "He's a hero." The children gently petted the dog's soft fur, and the mother smiled, her eyes filled with warmth and affection. The dog, once scared and unsure of his place, now knew he was truly home. His family loved him, and he had proven his worth in a way they never could have expected. His quiet demeanor had masked a heart full of loyalty and bravery, and now the family understood just how special he was. Life after the incident returned to normal, but the bond between the dog and the family had grown stronger. He wasn't just the shelter dog anymore. He was a hero, a protector, and a beloved member of the family. The dog now followed the family members wherever they went, always watching over them, especially the children. His presence brought a sense of safety and comfort to the house. He no longer looked uncertain or timid. He knew this was his home, and he would always protect the ones he loved. The family, in turn, cherished him more than ever. The family often reflected on how adopting the shelter dog had changed their lives. He had been given a second chance, and in return, he had shown them what true loyalty and love meant. The lesson was clear. Sometimes, the greatest heroes come from the most unexpected places. Did this heartwarming story of shelter dog loyalty inspire you? Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories about the love and loyalty of rescue pets. Share this video with your friends and family to spread the word about the incredible difference adoption can make in a pet's life. Have your own inspiring pet story? Share it with us in the comments. We'd love to hear how your furry friend has made a difference in your life. Remember, adopting a pet from a shelter can turn an overlooked animal into a loving, loyal hero. Subscribe for more inspirational pet stories, adoption tips, and heartwarming rescues.